everyone, happy Sunday. This is your video with Caro. This week's topic is a question that we got on the Tumblr, and it says, what would you say to a person who is strongly questioning their sexuality and gender? I'm so worried about being judged and not accepted by friends and family. What am I supposed to do? It's an interesting question, and it's something that a lot of people do think about, and then there are people who literally go their whole lives without ever questioning their sexuality or their gender. This is one of those things that not everyone thinks about, and that's fine. But for some people, it's very important for them to figure out what their sexuality is and what their gender is, and they can spend years questioning it, or they can spend a couple weeks and settle perfectly happily for, the rest of their lives. I'm one of those people who, I tend to not like labels. I think that they make your life more complicated, especially in terms of certain things. I think that part of the reason that I don't particularly like labeling myself is that I think that sexuality is a very private topic. And so while it might be important for you to determine what your sexuality is, and so that you can feel comfortable in your skin, and you maybe are one of those people who really like having a label and it makes you feel settled and happy, this is just my opinion, but I don't think that it really is important for other people to know, some people I guess, but not everyone in your life, to know whose pants you want to get into, or not want to get into, as the case may be. It's important for your friends and family to know if you want them to know, but there are people who go their entire lives without ever telling anyone their sexuality, and they're perfectly happy that way. So I really think that it's a question of personal preference, really, especially when it comes down to sexuality. I think that the question of gender identity and questioning your gender identity is a lot more difficult when it comes down to it, in that it is how you present yourself to the world and how you want the world to see you. Whereas in terms of sexuality, it doesn't matter as much, if that random person at the bank, they don't need to know who you sleep with, but it would make you happy for them to notice you as the correct gender that you want them to notice you as. And I think so that's definitely, I'm not going to say more important, but it might be more important to certain people. Basically, I think that thinking about your sexuality and your gender is an important step for everyone to go through, and it's healthy, it's perfectly healthy, and there's nothing wrong with you for questioning or, sitting down to think about it and being like, is this who I am? Do I want to be someone different? Do I want people to see me as someone different? I think that's an important, healthy step for people. I think that you shouldn't stress out about it too much, because I see sexuality and gender sometimes as both very fluid things. But at the same time, it's important for you to figure out if it makes you happy. If it doesn't make you happy to find a label that fits you, then also don't do that. I'm happier without very stringent, strict labels, and so I don't choose them. But some people, it does help them. The person who asked the question on Tumblr about, their family and their friends, and they're scared of not being accepted, that's an interesting problem. I'm the kind of person who, if someone doesn't agree with my life choices and they are going to make a big deal out of it, or they're not going to support me, or, I think of friends as a reciprocal relationship, so if it's not being reciprocated on their end, I don't want them in my life. If they are not going to be supportive of my gender identity or my sexuality, then I don't want that person in my life. And I think that's a healthy standpoint to have. Sometimes you don't have the choice, and then it's a little bit more difficult. Sometimes you're stuck with the people who are around you, and that's tough, but you have to know that you can, time passes and you can move on, you can help people to try to recognize what you're going through. So I wouldn't necessarily immediately write someone off for not being right off the bat supportive, because they might just not understand. But if they are being a toxic person in your life, don't be afraid to cut them out. That's up to you. Because in the end, you need to look out for you, and your interests and your happiness is the most important part. And there will always be people around, maybe they're not right next door to you, but you can come and talk to anyone on this YouTube channel, and they will be immediately supportive of you, because we've all been through it. You have all of these people rooting for you and who are going to be there for you if you just reach out for them. Take your time, you know, come up with something that makes you happy, you as a person fundamentally happy. If it's a label that's really strict, go for it. If it's no labels at all, perfect. If it's something that you want to label yourself as and then you change your mind, that's okay. People change, people develop, you know, things happen, and, you know, no one should ever, it's not anyone else's problem but yours. And so that's something that you have to remember, is this is your life and you are the one living it. And so you need to look out for you, and you will always have support, and it's sometimes not in the places that you would ever think of it. And even if it's people you don't know, like everyone on this channel, you don't know us, but we want to know you, and we will be there for you. And so, you know, sexuality and gender are both kind of journeys, but your whole life is a journey. I think it's important to find something that helps you settle into your own skin. And if that's a label, if it's the lack of a label, if it's a very wide label, it doesn't matter what it is, but make sure that you're happy in your skin. Surround yourself with people who love and support you, and, you know, the people who don't, try to educate them. But if they are not going to support you and they're not going to love you when you love them, then you don't need them in your life. And I think it's just important in the end to trust yourself and let yourself be who you are, and that can change and it can fluctuate, and that's fine. And it's important to remember that that's fine, and just let yourself be happy with who you are, because you are a beautiful, wonderful person. Everyone is so interesting and perfect in their own way, and it's so important to understand that. And you're just a part of the whole everything, the whole planet. And it's important to remember that you are beautiful the way that you are, and you as a person can change and fluctuate, but you're still you, and do what makes you happy.